Our good friend Doug Ritter with kniferights.org. Two Boston city councilors are looking for a way to make the sale of knives up there in Boston more difficult. Doug, welcome to Cam & Company. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great.
And Doug, you know what? Some of these knives probably have some wood
handles
that the government's going to probably want to look at too. So forget the lengths of the knives. You know, if they got the wrong wood in it, who knows? Maybe it's another way to go after you guys.
Let's hope they aren't listening, those guys.
It's very scary when the government abuses its authority in a way that the average person or company can hardly stand up to it. I mean, we deal with that regularly in both the firearms and knife communities. The firearms community is lucky to have a large gorilla in the NRA that can stand up to those things, and we're trying to be similar in the knife community with Knife Rights.
So the other day we read a story about in London. The mayor of London didn't want to give children tickets to shooting events because of the fear of exposing them to violence or whatever nonsense argument they have this week.
Nonsense is right.
But there was a man who was quoted over there, and I made a point of saying this at the time. Over here we have the Brady campaign against gun violence, and we have this against gun violence and that against gun violence. But over there was a man with a group about gun and knife violence, and maybe I spoke too soon. Maybe that's the next advocacy group here in the United States, talking about limiting the lengths of the knives. These Boston I watched there was an interview on the Fox affiliate in Boston with these two Boston city councilors, and they're talking about the need to license knife sellers. So what are you hearing, and what are you going to do about it?
Well, what we're hearing is just what you've heard, that these two counselors who have proposed to regulate the sale of knives. You need to understand the background of this is that the sale of knives to minors under 18 is limited to knives 2 inches or less. Okay. In Boston, knives more than 2.5 inches long, any knife, fixed blade or folder, is illegal. They did a sting operation and found a bunch of kids buying knives at little minute marks and stuff. Mm-hmm. And they find the stores, and that really should have been the end of it. They have a law in the books. All they need to do is enforce the law, but that's not good enough. Remember, we're talking about Massachusetts. There's a bill proposal floating around the Massachusetts legislature where they want to essentially treat buying a knife and make it almost as difficult as buying a firearm. They're just anti-freedom up there. Pretty surprising when you consider their history from the Revolutionary War. But they want to control people, they want to tax people, and they want to eliminate our freedoms.
Okay, so these two city councilors go on Fox in Boston. They announced this. Is this just idle talk? Are there plans? Are there proposals? Are they writing legislation? What is next for these two men?
Well, they haven't yet submitted a proposal for a municipal regulation. When and if they do, if we can't convince them to not do it beforehand, we'll fight it at that point. We're hoping that we'll be able to get to these folks and talk some rational, explain to them rationally why they shouldn't be doing this, and I guess they'll probably look at it and decide whether it's worth the hassle versus where they feel like the taxes they'll bring in, because this certainly has nothing to do with stopping violence with knives.
We're talking to Doug Wright with kniferights.org. Doug, you mentioned about being in Boston. We talked to Jim Wallace up there all the time about, firearms up there. And mm-hmm. Do you think perhaps, looking at the story from Fox 25, they say, when you think about weapons, most of the minds go directly to guns, but there's a growing problem in the city, the use of knives in violent situations, yada, yada. Two Boston city councilors are looking at a way to make the sale of knives more difficult. So do you think these guys are going after knives just because in a state like Massachusetts, guns are so highly regulated and restricted already?
It's certainly logical. We know that we have seen an uptick in the government going after knives throughout the United States as they become stymied in going after guns. We pushed back anti-knife legislation in 3 states last session. We're perceived as an easy target because Knife Rights is new and small and young, and a lot of folks haven't heard of us. So they don't see an NRA standing out there to fight. As the DA in New York City has found out, we will fight when we need to. We will go to federal court when we need to.
Yeah, and Doug, you mentioned New York, and I was going to ask you that. Is there an update? As of June 9th, you posted Knife Rights has filed a federal civil rights lawsuit to stop New York City from arresting law-abiding citizens carrying common pocket knives. We've talked to you about that a number of times here on Cam and Company and on NRA News. What's the latest on that? What's an update?
I guess the update is it's summertime in New York and not a whole lot gets done. We're working furiously behind the scenes, getting all our motions and anticipating what we're going to receive from them. And I guess the only thing I can really say publicly is it is proceeding apace, and we have every confidence of prevailing because what they are doing in New York City is absolutely wrong, and we think we can prove it.
All right, Doug. So you mentioned we're dealing with now this thing up in Massachusetts. You guys have dealt with stuff in Arizona, Utah, New Hampshire. Are you seeing? Is this a growing trend of people going after trying to regulate knives like this?
We think it is, and we think it is quite simply a reaction to their lack of success against guns in many instances, and the fact that we're trying to move things forward on the knife front with our National Knife Law Preemption Campaign, following in the footsteps of the firearms community when they did firearms preemption, starting about a decade ago. It worked, and we want to do the same things for knives. It's certainly easier for us to deal with regulation at the state level if we have knife law preemption than trying to deal with individual cities like a Boston. So if we can get preemption passed, then we have a better chance of improving the lot of knife owners for the entire state. We get rid of the patchwork of local laws that nobody can keep track of. I mean, there's places in the United States where in an hour's time you can drive through 6 jurisdictions, each of which has a different knife law. How can anybody keep track of that?
Absolutely.
Doug, I know that there's never enough support, there's never enough money, there's never enough people to help. How can we help? How can our listeners and our viewers help? What are you starting to find more people helping? I know when we talk to you, I would hope that it adds to your cause. But how can people get involved in this fight?
The best thing, the most valuable thing we need from people is their membership. Go to kniferights.org, join, become a member, encourage your friends to become members. I mean, every single person that's listening to this broadcast probably has a pocket knife. And we want to make sure that our kids and our grandkids are able to have a pocket knife. And the only way we're going to prevent ourselves from becoming like England and Europe and elsewhere is if we get together and we fight it just like they've been fighting for the other arm, the firearm. The Second Amendment doesn't say firearms. It says arms.
Right.
And Knife Rights is the second front in the defense of the Second Amendment. So support us with your membership, your donations. Like us on Facebook. We got our Facebook page going just 4 weeks ago. We've already got almost 5,000 likes.
Good.
This is all about spreading the word. This is a new issue for many people. They are used to fighting for their rights for their firearms, but they need to also help us fight for our rights for our knives.
Absolutely. And we will do what we can to help in that effort, sir.
Absolutely.
We certainly appreciate your support.
Very good.
That means a lot.
Doug Ritter, kniferights.org. Thank you, sir, for being on NRAnews.com and Sirius XM Patriot 125. Have a great evening.
You too, guys. Take care.